G'day. Today's clip is about this, and so I'm over here. This is the tailstock from a wood lathe, and one of the problems with wood lathes is that the sawdust, the shavings, all that sort of the dust is very drying. So it gums up oil, it gums up grease, it attracts moisture, all that sort of thing. So, you know, really, it's not a nice thing to have on a lathe, and this tailstock's a bit of a victim of that. It's jammed up, and so I need to fix it. And doing this for someone else reminded me that there's a job that I've been meaning to do for several years now on this lathe, and so today I'm fixing this, and I'm fixing the oil pump in this lathe.
This is a tailstock from a wood lathe. It reminds me a bit of a metal lathe tailstock.
So the features are what you'd expect on a metal lathe, probably 50 years older. These days, you know, of this size, a lathe will have a locking handle rather than a drawdown bolt. There'll probably be a graduated scale on the hand wheel, but that's all right. It's a wood lathe. That's they don't need those things. The problem with this one is that this live center is stuck in the tailstock ram, and so one of today's tasks is to try and free that up. Now, the owner has already tried hitting it a few times and hasn't got anywhere, so I'm going to be taking this thing apart and show you some of the bits and pieces inside it and how it all works. To disassemble these is pretty straightforward. You just wind the handle, and eventually this runs out of screw. There's a screw from the screw on the handle goes into a nut on the back of the shaft here. There it is. And so there's a keyway there to stop it rotating, but that's hollow all the way through. So I'm hoping I can actually get in there with a punch or something and just knock that center out without too many dramas. If not, we'll have to resort to a few other things, but that's basically it. Now, while I've got this, I'll take it apart and show the rest of it, but we'll sort this center out first. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I was expecting to have to really get stuck in there, but with that in there, I was able to put a punch down there, and with a couple of decent thumps, knock that out. I had expected to see that was going to be corroded up, but it looks like it's just grease that's gummed up, which is a nice thing. So now I'm into a bit of cleanup. I'll run a ream down there. That's a number 2 Morse taper, so I'll run that down there because I've got one, just to try and give it a fresh surface. Run that over the wire brush. Also, when I'm cleaning up things like this, you might just be able to pick it. There's a little bit of looks like hammers or something have come in there, so I'm going to run a file over the surface of that. I'm not going to be doing much except trying to take the burr off, because if that goes back into the sleeve, it might jam. Now, the way these things are meant to work is that is meant to go in there like so, and that's meant to push on the back there and eject that. So that all needs cleaning up and that action checked. I've run my M2 ream in the hole there. I'll give it just a little bit more, but you can see that what I'm getting out of there is a mixture of sort of dirt and rust and a bit of caked on grease. Now that's actually good, because it means that, you know, the socket isn't damaged. I just need to do that a little bit more, because I'm not quite seeing full cleanup, but that will just help, you know, in the future not have this thing jammed. I've said it before, but the way that Morse tapers and things work is that they're less than the coefficient, that the tan of the angle of the taper is less than the coefficient of the friction of the taper. And so if you've got something there that's going to disrupt that, it won't stick. If you've got it, grease, oil in there that lowers the coefficient of friction, it may not grab properly. So yeah, it's just one of those things. You want them to be dry or dry-ish and clean. Before I put this back together, I thought I'd show you how it actually ejects. That's a 1/2 inch Whitworth thread, but it's left hand, and you find that on lathes and mills a number of the feed screws are left hand. It just that's what feels, I guess, more natural, better, convention, whatever, for winding things in. So this one actually winds this way. The taper is in the socket, but as it winds, that little button on the back of on the front of the screw that I showed you, push against the front there and pops that out. So there we go. Right, so it pops that out, and when that's clean, that'll do that. And really, this is held by the stock. So instead of winding this in, this is actually winding in that way. Although that's got a keyway in there to stop it rotating. So it's a very basic sort of thing, but very effective. Pops that out. So I'm just going to lightly grease the ram and the threads. This needs a little bit of attention to try and straighten that tip out, but we'll see how we go with that. That might be beyond saving, but we'll see. Other than that, that's pretty straightforward. I've given things a bit of a wire brush, not all of it. Some people like the patina, and so where it's intact and there's no problems with it, I usually leave that. But there you go. That's the inside of a tailstock. This is the apron of my lathe, I guess, because it's the bit that's hanging down. One of the nice features about it is that in here there's an oil pump, and based on turns of the hand wheel here, it will pump oil into various bits and pieces. Now, when I opened the lathe up the other day to replace the T-nuts for the compound, I wondered whether it was oiling as much as it should. Now, the oilers have got a valve in them, and apparently they need a sort of a minimum threshold pressure to let a pulse of oil through. And so what could have been happening, or what could be happening, is that if the pump is worn too much, the oil is not getting up to that pressure, and so it's not pumping properly. I guess too of relevance is that when I got this lathe, I stripped it all down, but someone had decided that rather than using oil everywhere, they were going to use grease, and so there was a pile of grease in here, and nothing had been getting into the pump. So it could well be that things got worn in there just because it wasn't properly lubricated. So today I'm going to drain the oil out of that, then take that off, show you the pump, have a look at that and see whether I can improve that and put it all back together again. This is the pump. The way it works is that face there runs on an eccentric on the what do you call it, longitudinal travel of the lathe, and as that runs round, that pulls on that plunger, and in here there's the thing that there's a piston that pumps the oil out the end here. Now there's an intake there, there'd be a couple of one-way valves in there, but my concern is that the piston in there is worn, it's not sealing well on the bore, and it needs to be replaced or refurbished or something like that. The other thing that I'm going to do here, I think, is get out some TIG braze and build that up so that's round once again. That looks like it's been rubbing away there, and although it doesn't look like it's taken much out, I might as well build that up while I have the opportunity while it's out. But that's the pump. Now, to get the fork out, I've got a pin to knock out there. There's a split pin in there. There's a circlip there. There's another split pin there. So there's quite a bit of mechanical assembly for this thing. It's held in with 4 bolts there, and that's the outlet there. So once that cover is off, I then had to undo these two and undo that, but that's okay. We'll strip this down and see what it's like. I'll pretty much strip down now. So oil comes in through there, and there's a plug with a ball, and it just sits there under gravity, like that. and lets oil up around here, so the oil can get in. The outlet is just that bush, and that's got a one-way valve in it too, so that's all good. So as far as the valving goes, that's not a problem. However, and when I put a pin gauge down there, it seems to be 0.51 of an inch. I say it seems to be because you run into problems here, but the bore here seems to be, you know, that. This is the piston, and there's a collar up here that the yoke pulls upon. Then there's a spring return and another collar, and then there's this bit here which is acting as the piston. Now when I measure that, I get 1/4 of an inch, so I've got roughly 1 thou clearance, but when I measure that, I'm getting 0.49. So that's worn down a little bit, and if I can find a little bit of stainless steel of the right size to replace it, some 1/4 inch, I will. There's not really any way I can build that up short of putting things like O-rings or something like that on it, which I'm not keen to do, but I would like to get that as good as I can so that it's not going to bypass. Okay, so I need to try and find something for that, and as I said earlier, I need to build that up a little bit and try and get that back to where it should be. That doesn't look like it's much. It looks like it's, you know, maybe 0.5 or so of a millimetre, but it might be enough to stop this from you know, stroking properly. That's my replacement piston. Pretty much identical, but without a little bit of the wear and that sort of thing that is occurring down there. So I'm hoping that this will help. I don't know whether the piston was the problem, but I figure I may as well replace it as I've, you know, gotten that far into it. So it's now a matter of just reassembling and patching that up too. There's my bronze arm. I just put a blob of silicon bronze there, TIG brazed that on, and then just took that back to a roundish shape. I don't know how good or bad that's going to be, but it's got to be better than it was because it was worn away. So that sits in there like that. There's a pin that goes through, and then there's a taper pin, and I always try to assemble taper pins into their holes before I sort of do it in anger, because you've got to work out which way the taper is. So that slides in like that, and that goes in there. Before I do that, I'm going to put on the other collar just to make sure that I don't have to do something silly like take it off because I can't get everything to fit. One other thing I was going to point out too, this circlip here, when I first saw that I thought, oh yes, it's in a groove like a normal circlip is to retain that bit of gauze. No, it's not. It's just sitting there more as a retaining clip, I guess, just to make sure that doesn't pop out. And all the gauze is doing is stopping fine particles getting into the pump and jamming up the valve. So that was an interesting discovery. What I'm going to do, I think, after I've got the crank back on, or the thingy back on, is if I can find a container about the right size, sit this in a bit of oil and just see that it does actually pump. You know, because that way at least I've got an idea that, well, yes, it pumps. It should work in the lathe. Well, as you saw, it pumps, which is great. One thing I did notice or realise that it's not self-priming, so I'm going to have to make sure that when I put it back in, I actually have oil up to a reasonable point. There is a sight glass on the side of the apron, so I might just have to check whether that's clean and you know, working properly. But other than that, I think I've got a pump here which is going to do me well. So yes, revised ball bit and revised plunger, and hopefully that'll do the job. So thanks for watching. See you for the next one.